right. You can start. Assalamualaikum, a very good evening, everyone. Welcome to the virtual forum, Entrepreneurship Across Border Perspective. Hello, everyone. I am Susie. I'm the first president of the University of Manchester Alumni Association of Malaysia. We have here Alex and also Loxy. You are here? Right. From the University of Manchester Alumni Association of Singapore and also the Business Alumni Association of Singapore. Hello. If you are here and you would like, I would love you to actually share in the chat, yeah? In the chat, your name and where are you from, which organization you're from, and also the location that you are at right now. Yeah, your name, the organization that you're from, and also the location that you are at right now. Alex and also Loxy, if you would like to share anything, please feel free.
Right, I just want to say welcome everybody. I think this is the first time that Singapore and Malaysia, MBS and UOM has combined to jointly host a webinar. It wouldn't have been possible, I think, without the pandemic. So in all things, some bad things, good things also happen, right? So again, it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. You see the sky is very bleak, but sometimes, you know, you just need to open up a little bit and you can see very clear skies. So I think this is what the chat is today is really about. I just want to say welcome. We are all together, one family, Manchester family. Enjoy the show. Loxy, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Loxy, based out in Singapore. Yeah, I mean, as Alex said, yeah, we weren't able to have this webinar like when we can't travel. But of course, like it would be great if we can meet everyone in person. So, but anyway, like I'm happy to have everyone on the call. Of course, like thanks to the panelists for your time, and of course, Ganeshan, the moderators, to arrange all the content. So I hope everyone will benefit from this webinar, and yeah, feel free to ask questions and get the best out of it. Thank you.
Hi again, everyone. We have about 61 people here, and I'm so excited. Again, I'm Susie from Malaysia, the University of Manchester Alumni Association of Malaysia. I'm so excited to see so many people are here, and it's already reaching to 61 participants. So, and we already reached to 8:32 p.m. So it's time to start. Let me introduce to you the moderator, and then the moderator will introduce the rest of the key speakers. Yeah. So this is the first collaboration between Singapore and also Malaysia Alumni Associations. Yeah. So we have here my dear friend and MBA mate, Ganesan. He is the Senior Consulting Manager, Ipsos Business Consulting in Malaysia. And he will be the moderator for the virtual forum for today. Yeah, for the virtual forum of Entrepreneurship Across Border Perspective. All right, Ganesan, the stage is yours. Have fun.
Thank you so much, Susie. Very good evening, everyone. Firstly, glad to have all of you here. Excited to see many familiar faces, and thank you on behalf of everyone for all of you turning up for this webinar. So great to connect with all of you through this webinar on entrepreneurship across border perspective, which is hosted by Manchester Business School Alumni Association of Singapore, the University of Manchester Alumni Association of Singapore, and the University of Manchester Alumni Association of Malaysia. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm so excited to see so many participants for this webinar. A bit about how we're going to do the session today. We will keep this session a two-way session, where in a short while, I'll get the distinguished panel to introduce themselves, and then I'll be engaging on three broad topics with the panelists, which should take about 45 minutes before I open the floor for questions to the panelists, where we would spend another 30 to 40 minutes. So I know that many of you have sent in some of your questions, and I've blended them in some of my questions that I'll be asking. but say later on you feel that certain of your questions regarding entrepreneurship was not answered, then during the second half of the session, we will open for the floor for questions and you can definitely ask the panelists. So I think without further delay, let's start the session. So we have three distinguished panelists who I'll introduce shortly, but before that, let me introduce myself. I'm Ganesan, a Manchester Business School alumni where I graduated in 2012. And as Suzy mentioned, I'm a management consultant with Ipsos Strategy 3 and I've been with them for the last 7 years. So we have three distinguished people in our panel this evening. First, we have Ms. Jaslyn Lau, founder and managing partner of Advance Privates Limited Singapore. Mr. Melvin Chia, founder and CEO of Bryden Group. And lastly, my coursemate in 2012, Mr. Amir Rashid, founder and managing director of UoM Sdn Bhd. So I'll let them introduce themselves and share more about themselves. So let's first start with the roles, Ms. Jaslyn, to introduce herself. Jaslyn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ganesan. Can you hear me? Hi, everyone. Very good evening to all of you. Thank you for joining these sessions with us. I'm Jaslyn, the managing partner for Advance, and I graduated from Manchester Business School in 2009 with an MBA, and I'm also a chartered accountant of Singapore. So before I started with my business Advance, I have actually worked for several companies. Majority of them actually are either listed companies in Singapore or MNC. And my main focus has always been in the area of financial reporting and compliance, group consolidations, as well as quarterly reporting, which has been abolished this year. As to how I have started embarking on my new journey, that was back in 2014. And my beginning was a very humble and small setting. There wasn't any office, no staff. And in fact, home is actually my office to begin with. And as I'm actually in the service industry, there are a lot of times that clients require us to make presentations at their offices or, meeting up at cafes like Starbucks. So at the initial stage, I do not see the need to have a physical office. And I was also thinking that could probably also help to control my business operating costs. So that's how I started with a very small office. I went to IKEA and I bought a very simple desk. I had my small clock and a name card holder there, and I started. But it wasn't a very, I must say that that wasn't really a very good beginning, so to speak, because with no rental and I'm not paying salary to myself, and I have just mentioned that I did not have any staff for a start. So I was kind of getting very relaxed and did not even feel any pressure to meet anyone or to do any sales at all. So all this actually only lasted maybe about 1 to 2 months, and I started to look around for an office. And I had a very decent office, which is Regus at Tampines, just a 2-desk kind of office unit, and I started recruiting my first staff. So that's how the entire thing kicks in. And then I started to, even up to now, I've been 7 years in my business, I'm still running a very lean structure with just 4 team members, including myself, it make up 5. And I think being lean has got its advantage, especially because of the current COVID pandemic. We are still affected in one way or another, but we are not so badly affected. And being an entrepreneur, I always believe in lifelong learning and continuously upgrading myself. So what I did in 2018, I actually registered for the Chartered Secretary courses, and I have successfully completed the course in that same year. And currently, I'm also pursuing a Master of Law with SMU, which I hope to complete by next May. And the objective of registering for this course is still also hoping that I can acquire more knowledge and ultimately to add value to the clients that I'm servicing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jaslyn. That's amazing. I'm not sure how you're studying after studying. Let's not go into that. All right, next, Melvin, please introduce yourself.
Right, so thank you, Ganesan. So I'm Melvin, so I'm actually the founder, CEO of Bryden Group. So in my business, we actually serve both ends of the spectrum in which we deal with youths. and corporate clients. So our clientele can be as young as 10 years old to as old as the C level. All right. So I've been in this okay, the business I do is basically in leadership development, organization development, talent development, management kind of work. So there's quite a fair bit of HR consultancy work where we do in terms of how to help them to become more effective, help teams to become more effective. How do we help them to plan leadership succession and so on and so forth. So I've been doing this for as an employee for about 12 years. So I actually worked in this field for 12 years. Then I decided to come out to do my own for the past 3 years, right? So let's say I have basically 2 companies. So I lump it all into Brighton Group. So Youth Inspired is the wing that actually deals with educational institutions that deal with youths, right? And Brighton Group deals with the corporate clients. So Brighton Group is also we are also the Certified Master for Leadership Challenge. In Asia, there's only 10 of us. So as well as we are master distributor for the DISC profiling too. So in this region. So basically we are the one who actually supply the profiles to users who wants to use them. So it is very interesting that Justine was sharing about her journey in terms of how she becomes an entrepreneur. Mine started when I was 36, that's about 4 years ago, right? So when I was at age 36, I began to ask myself, hey, this is my third 12-year cycle. How many more cycles do I have? All right, so it's like a midlife crisis kind of question. So I decided that's a very big question I have. And then I began to ask myself, all right, so it's time to think about the next 3-4 cycles, what's going to happen. And one of the key things that I wanted to do is to leave something for my kids. So I have 2 boys, right? So that I want to leave something for my kids, and therefore I decided to come out to do something on my own. So I came out. Thank God we managed to get good inlets into companies like Hilton, Lazada, all these companies where we actually work with them in the Asia Pacific region. So that was a good start. However, I do concur, I do understand. I do feel what Justine was sharing when she said that, okay, we started off, we want to manage costs, so no office, no staff, let's do it on ourselves, and then complacency that seep in, all those things, and that's a very, very real feel. So when Justine was sharing, I was reminded of it. How things have grown so far. We have now I have office space and as well as staff with me. For me, I realized that as entrepreneurs, one of the key things that we need to understand is what is that key factor that will push us. So we need to really discover that. So is it really just about dollars and cents? Is it about the product they're selling? There's definitely more than that. So that was some interesting learning for me. All right. So yeah, sense? Yes.
Right. Thanks, Melvin. I think we'll come to the interesting points. The key deciding factors on why did you go into entrepreneurship, definitely along the course of the talk. All right. Thank you again, Melvin. Lastly, my classmate, as I said, Zami.
Hello. Hi, Ganesan. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That was a mistake. Good evening. And Assalamualaikum. Good evening, everyone. My name is Amir Rashid. I'm the Managing Director for Innovim Sdn Bhd, and I am very honored and proud to be participating in this forum. And I can see that there's like 70 odd participants. I'm getting nervous. I hope that what I can share tonight will be beneficial to everyone. Basically, I founded the company called Innovim Sdn Bhd back in 2013. And before that, I was working, and just quickly on my background, I did my MBA with Manchester Business School together with Ganesan and Susie. But before that, I was also a Manchester University alumni. I was the last batch from UMIST before they joined together with another university in Manchester, University of Manchester, to become what it is now. So this was back in 2004. I was in Manchester since 2003. So I'm very proud to be part of the Manchester University Alumni Association. Now, basically, my company, we do 3D stuff. We do 3D simulation work, visualization. We develop virtual reality and augmented reality contents for enterprise, for companies. And we always find ways how we can assist companies to improve their business processes using interactive digital visualization technology. So basically, that's what we do right now. Over back to you, Ganesh.
Thank you, Zamir. So again, thank you so much, distinguished panelists. I think your introduction has given everyone a brief overview about yourself. And I think that sets the context of the participants are able to know who they're viewing today. I think let's go straight to the agenda of the day. The first thing is about entrepreneurship, and the common thing between all three of you is all three of you had employment before this. So you all were working in an organization, you all were working in a company. And I assume when you're in a company and when you work in a setup environment, you don't have to worry about a lot of things, except that you just need to get your job done, and then your salary comes in every month. And someone like me, very comfortable in that environment, that we never take the plunge into entrepreneurship. The beautiful thing is all three of you have done. So I think what I would like to hear, and I think all the participants also would like to hear, is what were the key drivers or the decision-making factors that led you to choose to go into entrepreneurship? What made you take the plunge? Probably we start with Melvin first.
All right, so thank you. So as I was sharing, I think one of the key factor is really about what am I leaving for my kids. So that was the thing that actually started me to start thinking about, okay, is entrepreneurship the way to go? So another key thing that I also want to, as I was reflecting through, is that we may have acquired certain skills, we may have acquired certain specialty, but the fact matter is that ours, or does it belong to the organization? I mean, the fact matter is, as long as you're within the organization, it will always be with the organization, never be yours. And one of the things that I find that, I mean, this is just my personal belief system and values. I like to have something that's of my own. And that was also one of the key reasons why I decided to come out and say that, hey, why don't we do something and make it my own, with my own signature and all those things.
Now, just one question to follow up with you. So when you're in employment, as I said earlier, you're comfortable, salary comes in, and you know everything is taken care, but probably not as much as probably you can make as an entrepreneur if you're successful. But what really gave you that deciding factor that, yes, I can do it, I'll be able to, start with a constant revenue at the start and then grow it? What gave you that confidence in it?
I am not confident at all. I really don't know what I'm getting myself into. So when I came out, right, there's no guarantee you say that once you come out, you'll definitely be successful. There's no such guarantee. So when you go in, right, all you can do is, okay, you can do whatever calculation they have, calculated risk and all those things, right? But the reality is, once you step out into entrepreneurship, it's an unknown. You won't know whether you have food to eat tomorrow. That is the reality of things. And I mean, I just sharing with you something very real, that when I step out, my wife was very supportive. It was very nice to say that, hey, whatever you have decided, I will be there for you. But then she told me one statement that up to today I still remember. No? She asked a question: how long are you going to give yourself? Oh my gosh, I haven't started. Tell me how long I'm going to give myself. So that was the first question she asked me, no. And I don't answer. So my response is, hey, don't stress me, I just started, no. I haven't even put my name into the register. Tell me how long I'm going to give myself. So there's a lot of pressure. There's no uncertainty, really. But why then do I still decide to take that plunge? The fact matter is, the desire to birth something for the children was so strong, stronger than being in employment. I was actually offered partnership within the organization, but I decided not to take it because it's still not mine. You understand where I come from? Yeah.
Actually, very interesting, Melvin. I think very, very interesting, especially the reason you have taken the plunge with kids being at the core of it, your family being at the core of it is really interesting. And I think one very valid question is, how long are you going to give yourself? I think that I'll probably throw that to Zamir next while he answers this question. How did he take the plunge? And his wife asked the same question. How long are you going to give yourself? So Zami, how long did your wife give yourself, and how did you take the plunge? And does the NPV, IRR, and all we learn at financial management work?
Thanks, Ganesan. Well, I was actually given a couple of years.
Couple of years,
but that was 8 years ago by my wife. No, I mean, I totally agree what Melvin said. I mean, when you are in employment, when you start thinking about doing business, being entrepreneur, well, it's basically an unknown factor, you know. And for me personally, at that time I was more of an idealist. I thought, you know, I wanted to change the world. You know, I thought that I could bring. This is honest, you know. This is an honest answer for myself. I really thought that I could do something and bring something to the world. And at that time, my world was a small niche area doing consulting work for oil and gas. So I was feeling that you know, let's use you know, your skill sets and grow and develop more advanced solutions using 3D technology for the oil and gas industry. So it was very idealistic conditions at the time, and you know, that was basically what drove me to start the business. Very idealistic, very green-eyed, you know, and thinking that it's gonna be okay, and feeling very naive. Well, at that time, was quite naive. But to answer your quick question, your IRRs and NPVs, I actually did all those questions. You know, I actually used all the knowledge that I gained from doing the MBA to you know, prepare the business plan. For me at that time, it was more of why did I choose to actually do it? Because I thought I could you know, provide more or contribute more to the industry. But I was being held back a bit in my previous organization. So I decided to part ways with them and start my own. And I think the key at that time, why I was confident, because I actually managed to raise funds from external investors. I presented my business plan to some of my earlier partners, and the business plan was scrutinized, it was criticized and things like that. But ultimately, I managed to convince a couple more partners to fund the business. So from there, basically the confidence was quite high and things like that. And without that, then probably I wouldn't have gone in.
Sami, I think I just want to probe you further. You were saying that you started it as an idealist, you went in quite green kind of thing. But what you mentioned is quite interesting, that you had to actually pitch your business plan to investors and get their buy-ins, right? So normally when you do that, that is a kind of an external validation to your idea. It's a kind of external validation to what you're going to start. And once they have the buy-in and they are ready to invest, technically what you're doing is now practical beyond idealism, because they seem to believe in your idea, they are buying in your idea. That, as you rightly say, gives you the confidence. But then how do you see, was there a mismatch in that after that?
Well, being at that time was an idealist, because right now is when we actually in doing the business itself. There's so many other challenges, there's so many other factors that were not considered at that time. You know, about the market, the market readiness, about you know, your pricing strategy. There's so many other things that were not really thought about carefully, which I think in hindsight I would have done things a bit differently. But you know, we can only prepare ourselves that much. So yeah. That's just how it is.
I'm sure you can never prepare, you can never answer all the questions heads on or not. You'll only keep on answering questions and you never start anything, right? Yeah. So thank you, Zami. I'll come back to you soon. Jaslyn, on your side, I think from your introduction earlier, it's a lot more of professional services. You come from a professional background of accountancy, and then you went on your own. So how was that transition? I think you gave a bit of intro, probably a bit more of the transition. Did you also do NPV IRRs? Were they working? And did you have a set of clientele, because you come from a professional services and you sometimes service clients, and sometimes, and when they have that trust and when you go on your own, they tend to follow you. So did you advantage bring you further? Or yeah.
Thanks, Ganisan. So for my case, there is a reason why I decided to take the plunge. There isn't really any push factor in the sense that I was still quite happy working in my previous company. But I was thinking the current retirement age is at age 62, and you can actually, you'll be allowed for extension if upon agreement between you and your employer. And I've also told myself before that by the time I reach 50, I do not want to end up begging companies for jobs. So essentially, what I did was I was quite lucky because back then in 2014, I had a friend whom I met by coincidence, and she was just asking me a very casual questions as to, since I've been in this corporate world for about 15 to 20 years, whether would I seriously consider to leave my full-time job and then start my own consulting company and help her to manage her finance department, because she's having some challenges managing, the finance team, both in Singapore and China. So as I said, it's not really a push factor, but I kind of like, it's more like a pull factor. I was thinking, why not? And I feel that whether is it servicing or assisting my employer, or now switching it to servicing my clients, there isn't really any change in terms of career. I'm still doing what I'm good at. The only difference is that I now have to make sure that, I try to strike a balance between managing clients' expectation and also governing, the appropriate accounting treatments and all the FRS standards and stuff like that. So that's how I started. And it's been very, sorry, Ganesan?
Sorry, just to ask you, I think what you said is interesting. You said there was no push factor, but without a push factor for you to take the plunge is quite, it's quite interesting, because normally there must be a push factor, as Melvin said, a crisis to give you the wake up call and say, all right, I need to do something. But yeah, could you just...
Okay, sure. So what I'm trying to say is, as I said, I told myself that by the time I reach 50, I do not want to beg people for jobs.
Okay.
And I feel that in this line of providing advisory services, as anybody's company secretary or accountant, it is a job that you can even continue working even beyond 65 if you are mentally and physically still fit enough. And I do not see this happening if I continue to work in any organizations, because I'm already seeing a lot of my peers and ex-colleagues who have been, unfortunately, have to be laid off because of internal organizational restructuring, cost cutting, and more so because of the current pandemic. So it kind of, I don't know whether you call that as push factor, but I'm more thinking in terms of going forward as I age, right? I still want to age gracefully. I still want to be able to contribute by still able to add value to my clients. But what I would say is that if I were to reach beyond that 60 age group, I will not stop working, but I will try to slow down. But yet I want to be able to still contribute back to the community. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think the first key takeaway that we get here is entrepreneurship keeps you in employment longer and has no retirement.
Yes, correct.
That's a driver, but of course it's not. Yeah, Zami will probably have different views later on. I think that's the first point that we can say as a takeaway, right? All right, thanks for the first part of the question where we were looking at how did you decide to take the plunge, and I think I saw quite some interesting drivers, right? Sometimes no push factor, but you basically didn't want to beg someone for a job. Similarly about, creating something for kids, and someone else with a niche specialty who saw the value out there and decided to take the plunge. That's all very, very interesting. And it comes from different perspectives. But what I think goes now, if you go one step deeper, right? While doing some research for this webinar, I came across a saying which says, if you want to be successful in business, you shouldn't just start something because you can, but you need to identify if there's a need for your services or products, and would people pay for your products and services. So I think that becomes very important, and I think that becomes an output to the NPV and IRRs which you will do to identify the potential of your business. So probably in this context, Zami, could you share with us, how do you identify what the potential of your products is, and so forth, because previously you could be working with a big brand and that brand carried a lot more value. So in this context, when you go with your individual, you have the experience, you're a niche service provider, but probably your brand is still at the infancy. So how do you identify the potential and whether people will pay for it?
Okay, thanks, Ganesan. Basically, for me, what we do, what I do, what my company does, basically is we provide 3D simulation work for our clients. We started off in the oil and gas industry, and basically at that time, I was one of the key people in Malaysia who actually does that particular work. So it's a very niche service. Not many people could do it, and I was one of those that actually could provide that solution. And when we started the company, basically I had before I started the company, I had some plans on how to grow further in the old organization. However, maybe the vision that I had was not shared by that management at that time. So that's why I decided to open up my own company. And we did very well. Knowing that we had a key, something that no other company in Malaysia could provide at that time. So that's why we were confident that we could get people buying or paying for our services. So right. Yeah, I guess I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so you were offering services and you saw the potential and you knew the market well enough. So yeah. I think to be safe, is it fair if I say that you knew the market, you knew what the market wanted, and you knew what you could provide for the market, basically addressing what they needed?
Yes, because evidently that was basically how we managed to have a very good start to the company. For the next 2 years, we were doing very well. But having said that, we have pivoted a couple of times. We have changed our business strategy a couple of times, and for those times it was more of out of desperation, I think. We were really badly affected when the first oil price crash happened back in 2015. So that was the first time that we had to pivot our business to focus more on diversifying and going to virtual reality technology, using augmented reality technology and things like that. So at that time, it was more of a market push rather than a market pull. So I didn't really know whether people were willing or wanted to get our solutions and services. But during the first time, during the actual plunge into entrepreneurship, I was very confident. But during the second time when we had to pivot our business and start other business areas, there was more of a market push. So I didn't really know whether the market was ready or available. But we had the knowledge and skill sets. We managed to develop a team to be able to do that particular service using VR and augmented reality. At that time it was more of just taking the plunge into a new area and not knowing what sort of need or what sort of acceptance were there by the market. So yeah. That was a bit of a different condition than it was when I first started.
Okay, thanks, Amir. I think one interesting point you said was desperation led to a change in business strategy. I'll catch up with you more on that, trying to understand that a bit more. I think next, Melvin, or in your terms, right? As a management consultant myself, I've got clients who come to us to tell us, yeah, listen, can we go into this market? Is it saturated? Do advisors who's our potential market, and do we go on our own or do we do a JV, so forth? So when you identified the potential for your business, your clients, how much would they pay for? Would they buy your services? How did you identify that? What did you do? And yeah.
Okay, I think the way that I go about doing is I enter into a playing field in which I am very, very familiar of. So okay. The educational field is where I started, and that's where I built my base. So from there, we then move into corporate training. So this is where where it becomes slightly unsure. So things in terms of, okay, so how should we go about doing, how should we position? So this is where we need to do our market research to I mean, the fact of the matter is we need to shop the competitors to actually find out, hey, what do they have, you know, what are they offering? So in Singapore, we have a very open bidding or tender system for government projects, right? So that is a very good starting point for us to gather intelligence to find out, okay, so what is the price point and so on and so forth, and what if we were to push it higher or lower. So there was this particular case which happened recently. It's very interesting. We just want to push and see how will the pricing be affected if we go low, if we go high. And that particular case study, right, we realized that, for example, just for example's sake, the entry price is $100, and if you go below 60 or something like that, what happens is you are immediately taken out of the equation, even though you are the cheapest provider of that particular service. All right. So then that got me thinking in terms of, okay, so what are the people actually looking out for? Is it really price? Is it really service? Sometimes all they are looking out for is that simple phone call for you to establish that contact, to hear you, and then that's where business starts. So the quick question, I mean, my response to your question would be, how then do we know whether we are pricing correctly? There's a lot of trial and error, and we need to know where to try the trial and error that is the safest. Yeah, so that's where I'm coming from.
All right, thanks. Now, Jocelyn, how about yourself? I think on your side will be a bit more unique because again, you come from this sector and you have the experience. So did that give you an advantage in identifying your potential clients and the price points?
Okay, so to be honest, every company needs an accountant and every company needs a company secretary. So even in the current COVID situations where we have been approached by clients who would like to, say, for example, scale down the services that they have engaged us, or even to the extent of shutting down their companies, it is still something that is still an area for us to be able to assist them, because basically you need to clear your tax before you can shut down your company, for instance. And so to answer your questions, it didn't take me too long because as you have correctly pointed, I am still in the same industry. There isn't any career switch for me, and I feel that it is pretty easy to convince any client, because even from the scratch, for any entrepreneur who wants to kickstart this journey, they need somebody to be able to help them with the very basic company incorporations. Of course, any individual who aspire to be one can actually go ahead to incorporate themselves. But I would always like to emphasize, from day one, that it is always important to have all your corporate secretarial records put right in place, because it is quite often that every entrepreneurs, their dream is always to be able to build their business and ultimately, to invite investors or even to exit and cash out. And I do see the importance of getting all your corporate secretarial records right from the first instance. So this is where we actually try to explain to our clients who may not know much about the importance of having all your records properly put in place from the beginning. And of course, then the next thing would come with all your regulatory compliance and stuff like that, to be able to, it is important that you ensure that you comply with IRAS requirements, ECRA requirements, because you do not want to come to a point where your business is expanding, your revenue is growing, and along the way you found that you have not been complying with some of the tax requirements and stuff like that, and you'll be caught in a very, very tricky situations. Okay. So Ganesan, I'm not sure whether I'm on the right track.
Okay, yes you are. But I think probably one question that I'll probably like to just go with you straight. The current pandemic has definitely disrupted a lot of our businesses. Whether you are employed or whether you are the owner of the business, there's disruptions left, right, center. Right? They said 10 years of people pushing e-commerce never worked, but 3 months of COVID just increased the uptake of digitalization, e-commerce penetration across the globe, for example. So in terms of, in this context, right, how has the pandemic disrupted your business, and what were some of the tough decisions you had to make? Did you have to terminate anyone, or did you have to rescale, offer pay cuts and so forth? Because you're doing things that are not the glamorous stuff, right? In the good times, it's always hire people, you give people increments, bonus, the nice things to do. But in this context, how has it disrupted, and has it made you stronger?
Yes, definitely. So for a start, since we started the business since the day one, we have always been operating on cloud environment. So, you know, even on the server. So the moment just before the circuit breaker kicks in mid-March, we already see the situation getting bad. And in fact, we have started working from home. And I have also informed all my team players that since we can all access to the server, and it should not be there shouldn't be any issues for us to work from home. So that is one point. Another thing is that in terms of our business, like I said, I will be lying if I say that we are not affected. But because we are in the outsourcing, we are providing outsourced services, so we do see a lot of clients, especially in the retail and F&B business, they are really badly hit. And they engage us, in servicing like transaction processing for them. So in situations like this where they see that, because definitely with their restaurant closing, there isn't any business, and there isn't any, even the number of invoices that they are churning out from suppliers has also very much reduced. So what they have how they have approached us is they come and negotiate on terms like, I want to scale down what I have been engaging you all along, or rather, can I suspend the service for the time being until such time when things becomes better. So
it's impacting your receivables.
Yes, correct. So it kind of, I fully understand the situations, and I think it would be very very unreasonable if I give a straight no answer. So we actually try to come to a negotiation whereby we see how things go. But in a nutshell, I'm also trying to share that this is how business is seeing the advantages of having this outsourced model, as in they do not have to end up retrenching their staff, especially the finance staff. Business volume comes down, definitely your transactions comes down. There isn't really very much things for you to process. So they see that there isn't a need for them to be put under such pressure, because what they simply can think of doing, at least for temporary measures, is to come forward to us to seek our understanding and then to scale down the operations. So I see that it's a win-win situation. I have got situations whereby companies who have come forward and we have helped them with incorporations, and they were just incorporated, like say for example last year, they were so enthusiastic about setting up their restaurants, but beginning this year they approached to say that they would like to strike off the company. So I have two options. Either I actually agree and I assist them with that, but after talking further with them, that they are really into this business, but the pandemic has kind of affected them very badly. But it may just be a temporary thing in that sense. So what we have worked out is let this thing run for a while, and then we see how things goes. And I'm very happy that they are going to have their grand opening of their restaurants in 2 weeks' time.
All right, that's interesting.
So if I have gone ahead to take their advice to help them to close, it would probably take them a longer time to kickstart another incorp. And of course, it means money for me. But I do not see this as a very cost-effective manner to handle the pandemic. Yeah.
So there's always a silver lining in all the crises. Huh?
Yes.
Okay. Melvin, on your side, what were some of the challenges that this pandemic has brought to you, and probably some of the key takeaways that you can learn from this pandemic?
Okay, so one of the services that we do, we actually provide training services, training solutions to organizations, right? So at the beginning of the year, things are all lining up. So the pipeline is, you know, we're trying, we have actually filled up some of the things. When the government decided to say, oh, circuit breaker kicks in, or a couple of weeks just before circuit breaker kicks in, immediately we lost close to 70-80% of our deals. And these are confirmed deals. So we lost that amount immediately. And then no matter
that's
how
revenue
hard
gone.
yeah,
That's potential revenue gone, yeah.
Correct. So the thing is, no matter how hard you try to negotiate with the client and say that, hey, come on, we can do some other things, so why don't you look at it differently? It's definitely a no-go, right? So when that happens, there are two responses. One, we can eat worm and die, or we can decide to do something about it. And that's what we did. I think one of the key things that I learned in my MBA, right, was to talk about how to pivot quickly. And so that's what we did. And we quickly shift everything online, all right? So once circuit breaker kicks in, by end of week 1, we are running online programs. And when we're running online programs, what we are doing is we are literally trying things out. So it serves as a prototype. And therefore, we're giving, you know, nowadays there's no masterclass, no webinars kind of thing, right? So we started those things. And as we do those masterclass or webinars, we are trying to fine tune our processes. At the same time, people begin to know that, hey, you are doing that. So I think the good thing, the silver line that came in was there was a stat board that came in. It's in the aviation industry, and they are very badly hit. The good thing is because of this issue, right? They need to send their guys for training. In 1 month, we trained more than 3,800 people, more than 800 hours of online training. So that happened because we pivoted fast. So the thing is, were we upset by the COVID change? Yeah, but did we dwell in it? No, I don't think we have time to do that. And as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we need to then ask ourselves, what is more important? You know, just you know, tending your wounds. Oh, we lost 80% of revenue, that kind of thing. Or are we going to do something practical about it? So that was a very key lesson that I learned during this circuit breaker period.
I think what you mentioned was quite interesting about identifying how to pivot, and you moved online. You mentioned about, you know, transferring everything online and then slowly building it up from there and attracting traction again to your business, right? So there were situations you possibly had either say status quo that will bring a lot more trouble, but then take the storm by its, you know, heads on and come up with something. That's quite interesting. Zami, on this side of the Causeway, how did the pandemic affect you? We had a longer MCO. We had about 6 weeks of lockdown, and but yours is virtual. I assume your whole organization worked virtually. Yes. What was the impact?
Sorry, my mic was off. Anyway, well, to be honest with you, we had to revise our sales projection by close to 90%.
Oh, okay.
So originally back in December, we were you know, doing our sales projection for this year, and after the pandemic struck, we had to revise it by 90%. And the big problem for us was that you know, I started off as an oil and gas consultant doing 3D stuff, and we are still actually an oil and gas consultant doing 3D stuff. It's just that now we have you know, diversified a bit to other industries. So the problem that we had this year was not only there was the COVID pandemic, but the oil price also crashed worldwide. In fact, there was a time where it was a negative price. You know, people were actually paying other clients to get oil from them. So it was really that bad. So in our situation, that you know, for this year it was really bad. But the good thing was that this was not our first you know, our first recession in the market that we were operating in. Back in 2015, I saw my sales drop by 70% when the oil price crashed at that time. You know, so it is like Melvin said, you know, being able to pivot your business, being able to change direction, being able to to modify your business processes. That is the key in the pandemic. Back in 2015, when we were affected by the oil price, we instead of scaling down, instead of trying to reduce our losses, what we did instead was open up a new office in Indonesia, in Jakarta. I'm not sure if there are any Indonesian guys in here tonight, but we basically opened up an office in Jakarta back in 2015. Because of the oil price was very low, we decided to move into education as well as tourism in Indonesia. So we developed 3D applications, 3D virtual reality applications for the Indonesian market in the tourism industry as well as in education. For this year, basically, despite all the challenges that are happening, we were not that scared, or we were not that affected, not in terms of sales, but in terms of our readiness to meet the challenges. So for this year, basically, we just had to bite the bullet and continue preparing for the future. So right now, a lot of my guys are developing our own internal products, developing new ways of working, using virtual reality technology, using augmented reality technology. So we invested a lot in R&D for this year, ready for when the market rebounds, hopefully next year or the year after. So basically, that's what we're doing now.
Right. Thank you so much, Xavier. I think your point you mentioned earlier about during a crisis you ventured abroad brings me to the next topic: cross-border entrepreneurship. All right, that's the title about the forum itself, about the webinar itself. So entrepreneurship itself is challenging. Bringing yourself to another country has its own set of landscape, right? You're going to a country, different policies, different requirements, different regulatory requirements. So there are many other factors that are involved. So again, as I mentioned earlier, taking the plunge into entrepreneurship is one level. Taking the plunge into another country is a total another level, right? It's a total new ball game. Do you go in with local partners, or you went in on your own? And what was the map like? How did you decide to go? Market entry strategy.
We were extremely lucky. I think for those aspiring entrepreneurs in this forum tonight, don't underestimate luck. Luck is a huge factor in ensuring whether you survive or not. And so what happened at that time, we actually had one of our developers working in Malaysia at that time was an Indonesian. I'm very lucky to have him on board. He was a local, he was an Indonesian who studied in a local university. So we employed him as our key developer, and he's a programmer. And without him, I wouldn't have started my VR and AR business. Basically, when his visa ran out, we wanted to renew that. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to because he was still considered as a fresh graduate. So I think that's one of the problems that we might have with regulations in Malaysia. If we could relax that a bit, maybe that can help develop more innovation. Anyway, so that coincided with the oil price crash, and because of him being an Indonesian, I said, let's open up an office in Indonesia. And he was excited, and he said, if we are opening up an office in Indonesia, might as well we look for business over there. So yeah, basically the rest was history. We were lucky.
So sometimes it's not just being in the right place at the right time, but having the right person with you.
That's right, exactly. So without him, that basically gave us a lifeline. But actually going to Indonesia, there was also a big risk. We were not familiar with the market. So that, and also we're trying to introduce our technology to, different, industry as well. So like I mentioned earlier, it was more of a market push rather than market pull. We didn't know if there would be people who were willing to get our services. So there are different other challenges, understanding the culture, understanding how business is run over there. And well, it's been 4 years since, and our company over there is extremely successful based on my own measures. And I'm very happy to have my team over there.
Oh, all right, amazing. So Melvin, on your side, do you do cross-border? Do you offer your services across the Causeway or to any other countries?
We are looking for distributors.
Okay.
So we are
So there's
actually
potential for any
looking
of the
for this.
participants here to be entrepreneurs to distribute your product.
Definitely. Come talk
Yeah.
to me then.
So we do not
Yeah.
only create a webinar, we also create the opportunities to be distributed, right? That's Manchester, right? Okay.
All right. We are family, bro.
Yes.
Yes. So I think yeah, it does come across my mind to go overseas. I think I'm very new in that sense. So there are a lot of things that I'm unsure of in terms of how to go about doing or what to do. We do have many conversations with potential partners overseas. And I think just sharing my journey is that conversations like this sometimes may sound very promising in the beginning, but as things proceed on, we really need to have a very clear plan in terms of how do you want to enter into those markets. So I'll give you an example. Being a Singapore company, if you were to, position our products and services as how we do it locally, we will definitely lose out in the region. So I'll give you an example. If I were just arbitrary speaking. So if my program costs $100 per participant, all right, and if I were to use Singapore benchmark and move over to Malaysia, it costs $300 ringgit, 300 ringgit, and therefore we are definitely priced out of the market. So then your pricing strategy is important. We need to consider such things. How then do we enter? So this is something I'm still learning. So if anyone can help me out, teach me, I'll be glad to listen. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Melvin. Justin, over to you, but in this time, probably to you in a different question. Like in any journey in life, entrepreneurship has its own ups and downs. Has there been a point where you thought this is not for me anymore and I want to do something else? If there was, what are some of the signs that potential entrepreneurs need to watch out for?
Okay, so the day when anyone would like to take the plunge to go into being an entrepreneur, that is one steps. And along the way, of course, what I've experienced is that whatever business strategy that you may have originally when you first started your business, that strategy may along the way prove to be not something that you want to, I mean, it's not something that you will succeed. So along the way, we need to be mindful that we have to constantly challenge ourselves, and like what I think Melvin has mentioned about trial and error. So it doesn't mean that from the beginning, like so take for example, when I started my own, I have never considered to explore providing corporate secretarial services because I have always been a lot more comfortable to deal with accounting and tax. And so that was how I started my business back in 2014. But I do see that there is this opportunity of corporate secretarial, and a lot of companies, they prefer to have a one-stop solutions. For example, if I have been stubborn and continue to believe in what I think I'm good at and not explore the likelihood of, expanding the services to even include corporate secretarial, I think things would be very different, because in fact now, a lot of times people come and look for us for assistance in terms of company incorporation first, and not so much of accounting. So that is one thing. So to answer that questions of is there any ups and downs that I have encountered? I must say I was quite lucky in that sense, because I didn't really have a very challenging situations. But what I can gather is that managing clients' expectation is something which is pretty challenging, for the simple fact that you do sometimes receive some requests from clients as to, they would like their financial statements to be shown in a certain manner that they like, which essentially is not the appropriate way to treat certain things like revenue recognition, for instance. So essentially, on one hand, while they may want to make their financial statements look more rosy, but you know this is against accounting standards, against ethics, or against your principles. So you need to know how to manage that process to turn down their requests. So it's really balancing that relationships, and if it gets to be a really very, very sour, I would think that I'd rather lose this client rather than putting my own profession at risk.
All right, thank you. I think that's very nice. Melvin, on your side, considering that your wife already asked you at the start, how long are you going to give yourself? So during the journey, was there any point of time you said, okay, probably I should heed her advice and say it's 12 months, I'm not there yet, or something like that? Or what were the signs? I mean, I'm very happy that you're successful, but at any point of the time, did you come to that? You know, were there any indications that you probably felt, okay, this is frustrating, this is not for me, I probably can go back to employment or something like that?
Definitely, I think so. I mean, it's a very real question. At the end of the day, whether can we support the family? So one of the conversations that we always have is, Melvin, are you just pursuing your dream without considering the family? So in the very difficult times, in the very dark times, these are very real conversations that the family have. And whenever conversations like this happen, it caused me to really think about, yeah, maybe entrepreneurship may not be the way to go, huh? And doubt does creep in. So just share with you, there was an incident. So what happened was, I was 2 years into the entrepreneurship journey. Wow, I think it was getting very tough. So there was an opportunity that came in and said, okay, for the sake of family, why don't I just park the business aside, and I went back into employment for 6 months. When in 6 months, things didn't, the business is still running, but I'm doing both things at the same time. And I realized when I go into that mode, I'm not building the business. I'm becoming very, very busy. I'm heading nowhere. 6 months down the road, I decided to say, no, I need to realign and focus again. The reason why I had to take that 6 months employment is because finances were not looking good. I mean, I'm being very, very real with you. And I had to do something, otherwise the family will suffer, right? But then after that 6 months, when I said come back into entrepreneurship again, one of the key things that I told myself, hey, can you please be more focused at this point in time? Right? So one of the key signs that, okay, I'm just sharing experience. It's not that I've been there, done that. I think one of the things that we need to be very mindful as entrepreneurs is, when you're hitting at the end, we're hitting a wall. Have you really considered all options? Have you considered all perspectives? Or are you just looking at the wall and try to bulldoze your way through? By doing that, it saps energy really, really quickly. And it's not helping us to move forward. So that was one important learning for me. So now the question is, if it happens again, that, like for example, COVID, right? It happens and the business is not doing well, for example, will I have to say that, okay, since everybody is in lockdown, you can't have any training whatsoever, I'll just go bite the bullet and push through? No. I mean, the learning of that 6 months really does come in during this COVID period. That I do not just look at the wall, I need to find ways to go around the wall. So that is my sharing.
Right, thank you, Melvin. Very interesting. Lastly, Zamir, your point of view, how was there any point of time you thought this is not for me enough? I've done it.
Thanks, Ganesh. And I think one of the problems with myself is I'm very thick-headed. I really am confident with myself, and I don't know when to give up. But I think those are certain traits that is very important if you become an entrepreneur. From my point of view, if you ask me about signs when to give up, is basically if you start, being irrelevant to the market. So if the way you know you're being irrelevant to the market is when the time starts when you don't keep getting projects or don't getting purchase orders in. So that means that that is a clear sign to say that maybe it's time for you to quit. Fortunately, for me, we have never had the problem of not getting projects. We always had work to do. It's just that maybe cash flow is an issue. The burden of ensuring all your staff are being paid on time and things like that. So I think if you have tried many things and you see that you're not getting orders, you're not getting the sales, then maybe that's a sign where you are no longer relevant to the industry. And for me, at that point, you can either again pivot, you can do something else if you really if you still don't want to give up. But ultimately, at that point, you need to make a decision on what to do next, whether to quit or not. But basically, there's definitely ups and downs. But I've always had the thinking that whatever comes, there are definitely ways around it. But it's hard work. It's hard work. It's quite stressful. There's lack of sleep. There's all these challenges that comes in your own health as well. But for me, again, I'm very lucky to have a very supporting wife at home and very good partners, directors as well, who's in this, wholeheartedly. So we support each other in those times. So those times when it's not good, of course, you feel down, you feel stressed out. But there's always a way around problems. So, there's always things that are still under your control that you can take action to do things. So yeah, I think times like that you need to have a very strong support system behind you in order for you to keep going through.
All right, thank you, Zamir. So I think we've had an amazing set of panelists, and for 75 participants to still remain online, that means how panelists have spoke things that were very relevant to them or they were interested in or not. I would have seen the numbers dwindling down. So thank you again, panelists. Last question from me before we open we enable the participants to ask their. I think the last thing that I would like to ask all of you is, probably we'll start with Jaslyn. If you have to conclude, what are the key skill set that you need to have to be successful as an entrepreneur?
Thanks, Ganesan. I think basically we need to believe in ourselves and never give up.
Okay, so
I just have these two things to
yourself and never give up. Right.
Yes, and always continue, to learn. So that's what I've always been embarking on, lifelong learning and continuously upgrading yourself. Because I think, take for example, even taking this MBA, which I graduated more than 10 years ago. I do want to share that it will, for me personally, I feel that the MBA, the benefits that I have reaped out from the program is more intangible, in a sense that it really leads me thinking and being able to articulate better in your thought process. And I personally feel that every one of us have to continue to stay active and enjoy what we are doing, because that is how you will progress. And most importantly, is to have a very positive mindset in whatever you do, because and always surround yourself with positive people that give you positive energy.
Okay, I think that's quite interesting, but I think that's quite difficult to do, always having positive people around you, right? There are always a lot more naysayers, and it becomes better when you beat the naysayers and you do well. Melvin, on your side, what would you say are the key skill sets that you should have as an entrepreneur?
Okay, I think one of the key skills as an entrepreneur is really to open up perspectives, because opportunities are around, right? So I mean, you can coin it as innovation, you can coin it as strategy, but I think one of the key skills that if we fail to develop, to look at a situation, look at an opportunity or problem from different lenses. If we fail to do that, it is actually something very detrimental for entrepreneurs. One of the key problems that entrepreneurs have is sometimes we believe in our idea so much that we are blindsided. So we need to look beyond that and look at it holistically before we dive in. Yeah, so that'll be my input.
I think that's a very important point, because as you rightly say, sometimes when it's your baby, you believe in it so much, sometimes you can be blind, quite be one-sided sometimes, right? So that's when you need an external perspective to help validate. But again, I think that can be double-edged, because sometimes somebody else doesn't believe in the idea. There can be a lot more critics to it, and if you see a lot of success stories, they've actually overcome the critics and they're coming forward. So sometimes it's the right balance on when to drop it. Zamir, your side, what are the key skill sets?
I think I would like to see what you shouldn't do rather than what you should have. What you shouldn't do as an entrepreneur, you never underestimate anyone. You know, whether it can be the market, whether don't underestimate anyone. You know, your competitors or your potential partners or anyone else. Just don't underestimate people. Always think that everyone else is better than you. So that will drive you to keep improving. The next thing is, you know, when you don't underestimate people, when you always think that everyone knows better than you, that means you always think that you do not know everything. Please realize that you do not know everything. So you need to continue to learn. You need to continue to find other people who can advise you, who can give you different perspectives and things like that. So I think those are two key things that maybe a lot of people, despite however you totally believe in your product or what your services or what you can do, if you underestimate people, then and also you don't want to learn, or you think you know everything, that will be your downfall. And it is very important not to do that.
Okay, so basically to sum it up is be humble.
Always be humble.
Yeah, all right, okay. I think that's interesting. I think from being humble, you do not know everything, lifelong learning. I think that's fantastic. Now, I think the participants probably have heard me asking so many questions. I think there are more than 70 of you here. As I said, again, it's interesting to have all of you still stay on. Now, we open the floor for you to ask questions. Just probably a quick line on yourself. Just introduce yourself, your name, where you're from. And if you have a specific panelist you would like to ask, go ahead, or just put a general question and one of them will take the question.
Hi, thank you so much. I am a UOM graduate. Thanks to the panelists for sharing tonight. I only dropped in halfway, but I have been listening into the advice that you've been sharing. My question is for the panelists who are in Malaysia. As a Singaporean founder, we run a education startup. So we help mid-career professionals transition into the user experience design industry. And I'm a teacher myself and an educator myself. I've been running the business for the last 1 year, and we've been growing. We have some clients in Malaysia. So now we're at a stage where we're looking to transition into Malaysia. I was just wondering whether you have any advice for a Singaporean founder who is coming into Malaysia, and like what to look out for, you know, from a cultural perspective, or even from hiring people in Malaysia. Yeah, something like that.
I think Zamir, this is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Dalen, I think. First of all, my advice would be Ganesan is here to help you out. As an Ipsos consultant, he knows the market in Malaysia. He knows how to connect you to people over here. Anyway, joking aside, I think, well, actually, it wasn't a joke. Please contact Ganesan. I'm very sure he can help you out.
Okay.
But from my point of view, I think the same thing that I found when I started to go to Indonesia. I think the business culture and the way people actually do business in Malaysia, for example, is very unique, as is the business culture that I found in Indonesia. It took me 3 years to actually understand, how the business culture in Indonesia worked. I think the key is to really, understand over here what will be the business drivers. It is more of, maybe, especially when you're starting up, maybe it's who you know rather than what you can actually do. I think maybe my advice would be to come over here, talk to people, network, gain some your own hands-on business intelligence on top of getting Ganesan's inputs. But you really need to come here, talk to people, and really see how things are working over here. I think it's quite unique on the business culture over here. And similar for myself, I have been planning to go to Singapore as well, but I think it's a bit, maybe I'm not ready yet because over there the competition is much more fierce. A lot more tech companies available. So maybe it's not the right time to go to Singapore yet. But if you have something really good that you can bring to the market, please come over here, learn yourself, network. We have a very good network here with Manchester Business School alumni. So you can come over here and let's have teh tarik or something, and then that's how you can start. I think personally.
Okay, that's thanks for the advice and the offer. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Can I say something? I mean, I have a Singapore office, I have a Malaysian office. So having the teh tarik very important. And knowing how much the teh tarik costs in different places also very important. Right? So I think it's difficult to put a Singaporean mindset to go to Malaysia or actually anywhere else in the world, because the problems in Singapore are unique to Singapore. Right? And if you say you want to go to Malaysia and have a Singaporean mindset, it's not going to work, to be really, really honest with you. Right? So simple things like knowing what time to hold a meeting and to be, is really something that you really need to be able to adapt. I think that adaptability is very important. So, but I agree with Samir, is you really have to go down to, Malaysia or whichever part. I mean, but the great thing here is this, right? We immediately have friends here now. So the point here is, I absolutely agree again. You look up for Ganesan, Susie. I just have teh tarik. You will never know the amount of information you find from having teh tarik.
Yeah, that sounds like good advice. Lots of teh tarik will be drank over the course. Thanks for all their advice. I'm gonna try and reach out to all of you on LinkedIn for those who are in KL. Yeah.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you. Anyone else? Next question.
I think, Ganesan, there's a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay.
So if you scroll down, maybe I just read the first one if you missed that. This is from Shazad. Yeah. Shazad, if you are there. For me, an entrepreneur is a person with an idea or innovation and building a business around it. An entrepreneur looks at growth and expansion rather than paying the bills today or being a business owner. Yeah. In today's discussion, I do see glimpses of these aspects between the panelists, some more so than others. But I would like to have seen a bit more on that idea or innovation aspects, and especially on how the idea or innovation aspect changes in the context of COVID and moving for the future. Thank you. So it's about in the perspective of how the idea or innovation aspect changes in the context of during this pandemic, and moving forward in the future.
I think, Melvin, you mentioned a bit earlier about how the pandemic made you go online, right? So would you want to take on this, trying to explain like how ideas or innovation, especially during this pandemic, plus the other two of you, if you'd like to say anything, go ahead.
Okay, so just to share in terms of what has happened. the way that the training industry is like in Singapore, they are very prone to face-to-face. So in their defense, they're saying that having that face-to-face interaction gives you, allows you to know the people, they feel more comfortable. In itself, there's nothing wrong with it, all right? So what happened was when we shifted over to online training, many are unsure what to expect. One of the key things that we're asking will be, is it engaging? Can it be done? What do you do face-to-face? Can it be done? Let me give you an example. You know, when you go for training sessions, right, you always have those kind of activities, structured experiences that you can do, right? So what we did was we translated those structured activity and we created our own online escape room. All right. So in our online escape room, it actually draws out the same outcomes that we want to have on a face-to-face basis. So when we converted that, many people were quite skeptical. Are you sure it can be done and everything? But when they go through the whole experience, they were shocked. They were shocked by the impact that they receive. So where I'm coming from is this: when we talk about innovation, right? Sometimes we say that, okay, now because of certain situation, we need to innovate and all those things. The key learning here is not so much about innovating because of the situation, but what are we doing consciously to build capabilities? So as you build your business, you need to start asking yourself, the capability that you're building, is it for the now or is it for the tomorrow? And that becomes a very important question. If you're able to build capabilities for the tomorrow, you don't have to worry about all these shifts. All right. But if you just look at the capability of today, you will always be running catch up. All right. My second point to this question is someone is saying that an entrepreneur looks at growth and expansion. Yes, I do agree. But an entrepreneur also need to balance the now. The now being the cash flow, the now being the how revenue, all those things. So on one hand, looking at it in an ideal perspective, let's talk about growth, let's talk about expansion. It's always a very, very nice, exciting thing. But unless your foundations are built right, it doesn't give you the security to move there. So that's my thought.
Thanks, Melvin. Zami or anyone else want to add anything, or before we take the next?
Shazad, I know Shazad, also a very good friend of mine. I think this is one of those talks that we need to have data ready for. But nonetheless, yeah, I think innovation, everyone talks about innovation as if it's a given thing, as if it's that simple. It's actually, like one of the things that Melvin said is actually you have to be realistic in actually, planning what you want to do. Like I said, how I started off was being very idealist. I thought I could conquer the world. So I thought I could change everything, how people did their how operations and things like that. So the word innovation itself is you have to ground yourself in the now as well. You try to predict what's happening in the future and how people might want to use your services or how you can actually add value to businesses. But those are predictions on what happens in the future. So you need to be able to innovate to do that. But it's not a simple task. And based on predictions, unless you are, coming from the future, you never know. For myself, when we develop all these virtual reality, augmented reality applications, movies are always my biggest inspiration. Always look at movies, look at Hollywood, you look at the creativity that people have, and then we just try to replicate it. We just try to develop something that can achieve something similar to what we see in the movies. Like Ready Player One, for myself, Ready Player One, Tony Stark, those are inspirations to how we can, how my company, we innovate or create new products from the skill sets that we know. For now, for COVID, for example, immediately there's a big problem. People not spending that much, companies not spending that much, especially the market that I'm targeting, the oil and gas and tourism industry. Both industries are down. So in this point, I have to focus on the future. I have no other choice but to focus on the future, and I'm forced to innovate. I'm forced to create new products that utilizes all these new technologies. So sometimes innovation are forced on you. Sometimes you use based on what you can predict in the future, just preparing for that. But ultimately, it has to be grounded in the now. You have to look at your cash flows. You have to ensure that your staff still gets paid and things like that. So yeah, I think I hope that gives you some perspective to answer your questions, Shazad.
Thank you, Zami. Thank you, Melvin. Thank you, Shazad. All right, I think there's another interesting question I see from chat group. Susie, you want to go? Okay.
Is it the one from Haris
from
or
Ken.
the one
No,
from
Ken,
Z?
From Ken Chung.
Oh, okay. You may?
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay.
So I think this is quite interesting because when you are nobody, how would you approach small business owners to close a licensing deal, especially when these small businesses owners are not well educated, but they have products, they have great products. How would you go about explaining that the whole licensing concept, building trust and etc. So what basically Ken is saying, we have learned about concepts, a lot about concepts, but basically he wants to get some practical inputs on how would we convince somebody with very good product, but probably they're very small SME, to give you basically a license to basically either bring that product about to be a distributor or so forth. Who would like to take it first?
Maybe I can just say something. Basically, approaching people, especially those people who you do not know or you have presumptions on how they would react. It is very challenging, I would say that whatever you do, whoever you want to talk to, whoever you want to try to connect to, it's always worse in your head. It's always worse in your head. You would think that he might reject me. You always think about all the negative things. But what's the worst that could happen? You say, okay, no, thank you. That's basically what's the worst that could happen. So just try to come up with a strategy to see that person, what you can offer him, what you can offer that company, what services that you can bring to them, and just go and try to meet them, try to make an appointment, try to approach that person. The worst that could happen is just no thank you. They will not come and beat you to death or anything like that. So there's nothing wrong with just always in your mind things are worse than it would be. So I don't think you need to worry about anything. Prepare a good strategy, prepare something that you can offer that person, highlight how they can be benefit to both of you, and just go and approach that person, that company. That's all my advice to that question.
Thank you, Zami. Melvin, you want to say anything?
You should take the negotiation module in MBA lah. Yeah. So I think
theory. So in practice, how would you do it?
I think it comes back to asking yourself, how are you positioning in a way that you are, I mean, it's very, very cliche, but are you positioned in a way that you are winning together? So sometimes we try to take too much off the supplier, squeeze them dry. I mean, you think about it, you are requesting help from him, right? If that's the case, then how then do you establish that longer term relationship rather than gaining that short term win immediately? So what's a short term win? The short term win is that you can get 70% off the deal. That's a short term win. But the long term repercussion is you are in their bad books. If there's any new products, you won't be the first one to get it. So it comes back to in terms of what game are you playing? Are you looking at the long term, or are you just gunning for the short haul? Yeah, so that's my thoughts.
Thanks, Melvin. All right, then the third question is from Haris Pang. And his question is about ambitions for your business going forward, right? So basically he wants to know or hear, how far do you want to bring your business forward and what impact that you think you would like to have with your company? It's quite interesting, right? So we initially, we spoke about what is the key low points, right? When would you drop off? But in this point, it's the positive side of things. How far would you like to go? And actually, this is very interesting. Like, you know, when do you stop? And yeah, because technically the sky is the limit, right? Melvin?
My dream is to be that supplier. Really, at the end of the day, I've set myself a short-term goal by next year for distributors. At the end of the day, I am looking at whom can I support, whom can I build, so that we can run this together. So that's my big big lofty goal, I would say. But if you look at it from a very practical standpoint, in the first year, I mean, taking 2021 as the first year, if I can establish 4 strong distributors, I think that's a good start. With the 4 distributors, then we expand further. Then the business will change. It's no longer just a training business. It's really just providing that tool, providing that expertise and know-how to the distributor so that they're able to do whatever they're doing. So that is my goal. Yeah. Yep.
All right. Jaslyn, any inputs?
Perhaps my goal is essentially to be able to be like the Big Four one of the days. And in terms of the scalability of my business, I hope to be able to build the team such that they can actually do autopilot by themselves, and I'll just be at the back seat watching and then giving leaderships and guidance.
Okay. Probably one more question that now comes, I mean, something that I noted about, but I didn't ask earlier. I mean, entrepreneurship is a journey, right? So while you all have been successful, you all have been in this business for a while, how about grooming other entrepreneurs to also come into the ecosystem? Are you all doing that, or how are you all encouraging? So say, for example, are you grooming others to become like, in the context like Melvin was saying, he's looking for suppliers or distributors, and hence that starts the journey of entrepreneurship for someone else. How do you all see this coming to perspective? I think it's a bit more different in the context of Jaslyn because it's more professional services. But in terms of, say, products like what Zame does or Melvin does and so forth, how are you all grooming new entrepreneurs? Or have you all already done that?
When you say, sorry, can I take this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. When you say grooming entrepreneurs, I don't think entrepreneurs should be groomed per se, because everyone has their own ideas, everyone has their own, vision and things like that. But I think what we can do, and what I have actually, started doing is like, having sessions and advising other people on how they should do things. So I have talked to many other entrepreneurs on how we can grow, how they can improve themselves. But ultimately, this is one of the things when, like I said earlier, you do not stop learning, you do not stop improving yourself either. So I am ready to be groomed as well. If all the other entrepreneurs here wants to groom me, I have so many areas for growth as well. I do not know everything, but like I said, we share our experiences, we learn from each other, we learn from other people's mistakes as well. And we also learn from the non-entrepreneurs as well, because they will always have some other point of views that you do not have. They may not share the belief in our own products, so they will give you honest answers. They will give you their perspective as a potential buyer. So there's always room to learn. I think from my point of view, as long as you have the heart to actually open up and share your experiences, that also means you're also open to learning from other entrepreneurs as well. So yeah, I think that's my comment on this question.
All right, thank you, Zame. Thank you. Right, then there was another question from Keith's Go. I think that was quite interesting, where he asks us on, the question is on, many of you came up with new solutions post-COVID, right? So now, I mean, during COVID, so post-COVID, his question is, his point of view is, his question is, would you revert back to your previous business model once this pandemic is over, or would you use that as a new as a driver of revenue. So for the context of Melvin, because you were previously doing physical training, you have moved online. So in the context after they say post-COVID, things go back to normal, would you be running a hybrid model of both physical and online, or would you go back fully to physical?
You know what amazing thing that happened because of COVID, right? We, like it or not, we have just scaled ourselves by going online. In the past, by looking at it from a face-to-face perspective, we are limited to the local market. But now we can go anywhere. So if that's the case, why would I want to scale back this thing? It doesn't make sense, right? Okay. So that it is a good thing that came out of it. Of course, there are requirements that will still be asking, oh, can we still have face-to-face? I mean, why not? It's business. We don't reject that. But my point is, we have invested in processes, in infrastructure, and the new normal is here to stay, whether you like it or not. We really don't know when it's going to end, right? If it's going to take another 6 months to a year, well, you have something ready.
Thank you, Melvin. We're now about 4 minutes over 10, 5 minutes past 10. I'll give the last question before we call it a day. I think it's been interesting to still have 70 participants online. That means we have been relevant, right? So that itself, I think has been a good evening. So any last questions? Probably someone who would like to speak out or something? Susie, any questions from you? You're an entrepreneur now also, right?
Yeah, I just started and in terms of training and coaching. So I've been in the corporate world for over 18 years. So it is quite exciting and I'm learning a lot from you, definitely, with your years of experience and months. I have only like a couple of months of experience. So at this moment, I'm still internalizing, and it is a very, very challenging world in the entrepreneurial world. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I have no questions specifically.
Right. I think firstly, before I hand over back to Susie, I just really want to thank the 3 panelists we have had. Amazing discussions from Jaslyn, Melvin, Zame. If all of you could just unmute your mics and give them a big round of applause to our panelists. I think we really want to thank them for their time this evening. So if we can do that, and I think that will be really appreciative of them. And
oh, you could put in the reaction of clapping over here at the bottom of your screen. Clap. Thank you so much.
First of all, it's amazing. We still have 70 over. I think it's nearly 70 people coming, staying on for 2 hours. Wow.
Yeah. And
back to you now. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Ganesan, and also all our distinguished panelists, Jaslyn, Melvin, Zamer. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much to each and every one of you who are here from the alumni of the University of Manchester, and also our guests too. Yeah, from our guests. There's so many guests. Even I saw someone from Saudi Arabia, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so there are people from Malaysia, from Singapore, and other parts of the world. Thank you so much for being here. And we hope that it is useful. Yeah, the forum was useful for you, and hopefully that you will learn a lot, and it is an opportunity to connect with each other. But before we end, I would like to introduce to you Grace. Yeah, Grace from the Manchester Worldwide Southeast Asia Center. Yeah, Grace, would you like to say a couple of words before we end the session?
Hi. Yeah, hi everybody. My camera is not working very well. I think we may have to repair the camera a little bit, or we've overworked the video sessions a little bit. Yeah. I'm from the Singapore Center at Manchester Worldwide. I work with the alumni and students community on alumni engagement, events, and maybe career portions as well. Do reach out to me. I will put in my contacts on the group chat. You know, if you like to connect to any of the alumni associations or any of the alumni that's here, or to reach out to your cohort mates and stuff like that, please do reach out to me, you know, and then I'll try and make some magic for everybody. But thank you so much to the 3 associations. It has been an amazing, you know, session together from Singapore, you know, and then Malaysia, and working together, they have really put in a lot of hard work, you know, to make this very possible. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Grace. And also to Alex and Loxy, any final word before we end the day? It's almost 10 p.m.
I think Loxy, don't mind. I think if anybody who is really interested I put a chat groups link into the chat box. So anybody who is interested in joining, quite a number have already joined, and please we can keep the conversation going. That's one way. I'm also quite keen to see, I mean, a lot of people here are still staying on. I'm wondering whether is this a good idea to have another session. I mean, the questions will never be able to answer all of them in a single night. I don't know how we can continue this, but I think let's be very informal. And if that's something that we can carry on doing and bring value to the Alumni Association, right? And I maybe even invite other countries. Right, I think that's going to be a very interesting conversation. Right now, Singapore, Malaysia, right? I mean, Dylan maybe will be able to get a new distributor tomorrow. I mean, Garnison, I'm not, right? You never know.
Sure, happy to help. Right? I think we have a lot of deep relationships and close relationships between the 2 countries. So yeah, sure.
All right. Thanks, Alex and Dylan. Loxy, would you like to say anything before we end the day?
Yeah, just a simple thanks to everyone for your time, and of course, to the moderator Ganesh and the panelists who did a fantastic job this evening. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone, to Ganesan, Jaslyn, Melvin, Zame, Alex, Loxy, and everyone here. To each and every one of you. So if wherever you are, a very good evening, and hopefully that this would be the session has been meaningful and insightful and useful for you. Yeah, so take care, everyone. Please stay safe. Yeah, please stay safe. Have a very good evening. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.